Joining me now for a reaction is former independent counsel, Fox News contributor Ken Starr, along with former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman and criminal defense attorney David Schoen. Great to have all three of you here. Judge Starr, let me begin with you.
Thank you.
I remember the Comey testimony vividly because I write extensively about it in my book. And, it strikes me that if there's an email that essentially, Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, is saying, I'm not going to let this case go too far against Hillary Clinton. My goodness, doesn't that need to be declassified?
Yes, indeed. Greg, I think you and I and the American people are in agreement. We need more rather than less, and there should, especially in light of all the questions, very serious questions, about the integrity of the FBI's leadership and even touching on the Justice Department during that period in 2016, before the president was elected. We need declassification. Happily, as you know, President Trump has delegated that responsibility to the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, who's very experienced, and he's going to do a very professional job of protecting national security, sources and methods, but also then getting the information out that we, the people, need in order to make our own judgment about what happened.
David, the evidence is pretty compelling that the fix was in, that Hillary Clinton was not going to be charged. And I'll point your attention to what Peter Strzok said in private testimony. He said that it was the DOJ attorneys that told the FBI to change gross negligence to extremely careless. And then his lover, Lisa Page, testified that the DOJ said, quote, you're not going to charge gross negligence. Was the fix in?
Absolutely. I mean, it's very, very troubling. And remember, Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, said that he didn't have access to all of the emails. So we still haven't seen some of the emails between Strzok and Page. You discuss this stuff brilliantly, I think, in your book, starting at page 40, about this whole fix that clearly was in. And there's a question. Judge Starr spoke beautifully earlier, and he's absolutely right. But there's a real question as to whether and why this information was classified in the first place. I frankly just don't believe former Director Comey that there was a need for it to be classified.
Brett, I wonder if you believe Comey, because on the day he cleared Hillary Clinton, he said, I've not coordinated or reviewed this statement in any way with the Department of Justice or any part of the government. They don't know what I'm about to say. Then how come 4 days earlier, Page sent a text that said she, Lynch, knows no charges will be brought?
Yeah, this is one of the more shocking discoveries, I think, for many of us that worked in the Department of Justice. Jim Comey held himself out as having the white hat. He was the guy that was all about transparency, all about the rules, following the rules. You look at what he said in that hearing, and he says, I would have to give a classified answer in response to that. Well, he stuck with that, and he continued to use that as the defense mechanism to reveal the things that he was doing. Many of us that were in the Department of Justice, worked with Jim Comey, would have fired Jim Comey instantly on many of the issues that we now know he was involved in and how he handled them.
And Judge Starr, I mean, the twist on all of this is reportedly it was the Russians that intercepted this email, which only underscores that Hillary Clinton really did jeopardize national security with her private, unauthorized, unsecured server, even though President Obama said, oh, gee, she didn't jeopardize national security.
Yes, and that can't be right. It absolutely was so unconscionable that the Secretary of State would do what she did and do it intentionally. And the changing of the characterization, I think, is, well, to me, it's unpardonable. You do not, when the FBI comes forward with a conclusion based upon their very careful evaluation of all the facts, then say, no, we're going to change that. That's not your view. Your view is instead a softer and gentler view. And so there's just an enormous number of questions about the professionalism, frankly, of the DOJ and its relationships with the FBI, leadership in particular, during the course of the Obama administration. And the Loretta Lynch email, if this is true, is absolutely explosive, because that shows that there is a very serious issue of integrity at the very top of the Justice Department.
If people like Loretta Lynch, David, at the Department of Justice made a decision on not to charge for political reasons, is that obstruction?
Oh, absolutely. It's obstruction and several other things. It's so problematic. Listen, as I've told you before, my father was an FBI agent, and we're very proud of that. What these people did, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, this whole crew, tore down the reputation of one of the greatest agencies in the history of the country. And so-called civil libertarians like Nadler, Jerry Nadler, should be outraged by it. They should be outraged by the people they've embraced. That tells you that their Trump hatred outweighs everything else in their agenda. And that's not what they were elected to do.
Brett, I'll let you have the last word.
Well, I'll tell you, we should be afraid of what pattern we're starting to see. We have seen the director of the FBI follow a pattern of hiding things that he doesn't want us to see, leaking things that he hopes to get out there, not charging Hillary Clinton when many of us thought there should have been charges. And why? Why does he come out right before the election? Because he thought she was going to win, and he was going to cover for her after she became president. Then the same pattern seems to occur with the FISA court, when we have the Steele dossier and the almost actionable, request from the FBI to the FISA court that we now know is not accurate. So what we are seeing is a pattern that should scare folks. That's what Congress should be looking into, is what is it those in power are doing with the power they have.
Abuse of power and corruption to perpetuate power. Judge Ken Starr, Brett, thank you. David, as always, appreciate it.